My name is Natasha Roop. I'm the Indigenous Clinical Counsellor here. So I myself am Indigenous, I'm Swatine First Nations and also European. Day to day I see about 4 to 5 clients, individual counseling sessions which can range from asking about their daily life, how things are going in recovery, to also more deeper stuff like trauma, residential school trauma, and all of those type of things, anxiety, depression, sometimes EMDR, which is special for trauma as well. Yeah, it kind of just depends on the client, where we're at, what they need help with that day. EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's an evidence-based practice for trauma, using eye movements so you actually don't have to talk about the trauma. It's also called a silent therapy. It basically mimics our eye-like movements when we're sleeping in dream states, which our eyes move really fast, which is us reprocessing the day that we had. So it uses the same kind of mechanism for trauma that we have stored in our body. I actually was in my master's program for clinical counseling at Adler University, and I was doing my practicum here. And then I got hired on right after my practicum as their Indigenous counselor to kind of bridge a little gap that we had here at Together We Can. Since we have All My Relations, which is for Indigenous individuals, we just needed kind of like a little bit of a bridging program here. So they brought me in. But before that, I worked in addiction and recovery for about 7 years. Both back in Edmonton with women who are in recovery at houses there. But then when I moved here, I worked more so with individuals who are in active addiction. So downtown east side harm reduction work. As soon as I was working more with individuals in active addiction too, more so people on my caseload in the past were always men. And then coming here, it just kind of felt like a perfectly normal transition. I find it's very similar. I think men sometimes will have their guards a little lower, which I think is actually surprising, especially with a female counselor. It seems like they're already like, okay, I can like relax, take a breath a little bit, get a little more into this. But I also, part of my work is I always break down toxic masculinity, patriarchy, to get people to feel comfortable with their emotions, because that's a huge trigger for relapse, and also usually a huge reason why people are in active addiction too, not being able to open up, let those emotions out, those feelings out. My free time activities, I love art galleries. I myself am not very artistic, but I really appreciate art. So I love going to art galleries. I am also really big in collecting tattoos. I have quite a lot. Especially traveling to go get tattoos, and I guess traveling in general, since COVID has kind of allowed us to do that again. So that's also one of the big things I really love to do. Yeah, I have a couple of favorite artists. So I go back home a lot to Edmonton to get tattooed by Spencer Evans. He does a lot of my stuff. And me and my partner recently went to Arizona and got some pieces done by Nate Hudak, which was really cool. That was a really exciting trip and tattoo to get. I love my job. It's one of those things when I talk to people about trying to find your passion, and sometimes it doesn't have to be your job. I feel really lucky because it is my job. Sunday scaries aren't really a thing anymore because I like going to work. I like seeing my clients. I like helping them navigate their lives, being their person in their life to kind of share the load, help them heal. It just always feels like such an honor to get to do that and get to let someone let me in and hear their story. So I love it. I love all of it. It's a lot of work. I think I did 5 years of my undergrad, and then I did 2 years of my master's. But I'd say it's 100% worth it, especially if you're interested in the field of psychology, interested in the field of helping people. All that schoolwork doesn't feel like work because it's fun. And I think that's also the thing too, is if you really like it, don't be so discouraged by all the schooling as well, because in the end it's really worth it to do it. So I guess a lot of my work before was working more so in the downtown east side. So I think coming here, this was my first experience working with people of all walks of life, not just the incredibly disadvantaged people. So it really kind of shaped my idea of like addiction's everywhere. It can happen to anyone. It can be your brother, it can be your sister, your best friend, your parent, cousin, etc. It doesn't discriminate. And I think at the end of that, it just kind of shows us how there must be something greater than that. And so I always think trauma and addiction walk hand in hand, and I think that's something that we should all be looking at more.